Well, I wanted to share with you guys, somewhat of a hunting story, but really a hunting strategy, and something that has played out for me for, decades as far as how it works, and putting bucks at my feet on public land. And this happens to be a public land gun story. And, a lot of these gun stories is Michigan, heavily hunted public land. And a lot of these stories, when they involve guns in public land, I'm shooting these bucks. This one was probably at 40 yards, eventually culminated into that. But a lot of them are very close because I'm hunting thick cover and I'm hunting funnels. And one of the greatest funnel systems I like hunting, especially in big open public land, is in swamps and funnels and marshes, because you can really narrow down where deer move, where bucks move on a big scale. In this case, I was hunting the Hiawatha National Forest. So we're talking tens of thousands of acres. We're not talking a couple thousand or 2,000 over here, 500 over here. These are big wilderness areas that take 45 minutes to an hour of walking. And I don't use roads, trails, markers, hatchet marks, anything in the trees. I use a compass, and that's my backup, and I use my phone nowadays to see where I'm at in the GPS. On HuntWise, you can just preload it and look, see right where you're at. But that compass is so important. So a lot of times I'm taking a heading at where I park my truck, and I'm taking a southwest heading, and on the way back, I'm taking an east-northeast heading and just coming back. And it's amazing as you're pinballing through the cover, how all of a sudden you pass a certain tree or certain shrub or a little wet hole or swamp, and you pass, and you're just random on a 55-minute walk in, 55-minute walk out, you pass that certain area. What I found by doing that is it helps me get away from other hunters. And there's times I'll cross a couple of beaver dams, or you're going through wet area where you need to go through knee boots. You need to pay attention that you're not going over your knee boots. But bottom line is you're getting a lot of wilderness type habitat between you and other hunters. Even to the point where I park, I don't even want people to see what direction I'm going. I don't want a trail, so I'm being very mindful of ferns that I crush, plants that I crush, so that when I leave the truck, people can't follow my footprints. I'm making sure that I don't walk on any sand spots, open dirt patches. I'm walking through leaf debris and green, so I don't leave a track. And so that's how I'm first starting out with this whole adventure. Now I can systematically break down public land for you. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Don't go away. We have a really exciting announcement. I'm finally able to bring to you WHS Wildlife Blends. It's been in the works for a while, but we're offering a couple of blends right off the bat, just my favorite private blends, in a brassica blend, Big Blue brassica, and fall green blend. Both have the ability to build your soil, at the same time help you with weeds, and they're highly attractive. They're what I personally use. So after designing food plot programs for over 1,200 clients in the country, after writing about food plots, speaking about food plots, and of course, hundreds of videos on how to create food plots that best fit your needs, we're finally able to bring this to you. There are no coatings in these seed mixes, no sugar beets or other types of seed varieties that really don't mix, that have different maturity dates. These are made to actually be planted together. No ryegrass, we don't add any of that garbage to the mix. And then also no dwarf Essex rape, that's a smaller rape variety that's really cheap. We don't add that to the mix either, just to cheapen down the mix for us. And then finally, no bad mixes of cereal grain and brassica. So we're really excited about this. Again, these are my own personal mixes. I can't wait for you to try them out. It's a limited run this year. Shipping will be towards the end of July. Look forward to it on our website. The link is in the description. Thank you guys for watching. Now back to the video. This is something that's worked a lot for me in the past, and you take this type of terrain. Now I love hunting big public land, hills, dry area, hardwoods in Ohio. They're choppy. I like hunting the big hardwoods in Pennsylvania, where I've hunted since '93. So there's different types of habitat, big rollers and 700-800 foot changes in elevation in Pennsylvania, and then 200 to 300 foot changes in really sharp hills, some clear cuts, no cutting in Pennsylvania, and then open clear cuts, old cuts in Ohio, and then certainly the UP and Michigan, where you get into a lot of swampland. Each have their different habitat, and there's different formulas for success. So we'll talk about those in the future dates, but this one was swamp funnels. it's really easy to narrow down where a big buck's going to move and to put yourself away from other hunters. And this was a cool opportunity. This is a place I've hunted many years, going back to 98, and shot some nice bucks out on public land in the middle of a lot of other hunters. And it's because, especially in Michigan, a lot of people are baiting. So when they're baiting in this area, they're basically baiting 100, 200 yards from their ATVs. And so if you're quarter mile in, half mile in, and you have some heavy walking to do, you're putting yourself away from probably 90% of all hunters. Dylan actually hunted out here with me, and I don't even remember the year. It was probably 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
2018 maybe?
Yeah, that would be almost 4 years ago then. And we saw no other hunters. I don't think we saw a sign of other hunters. We saw one buck, and he went right through the funnel. But that's the thing. You don't see a lot of deer back in these funnels, because when you are seeing deer, it's typically a buck. So that's why I like hunting in these areas. But you're getting away from other hunters, and you have a systematic approach to success. So in this case, I'm looking at a large area when I first started scouting this area, and I'm taking out the water. So I'm taking out any area that a deer can't possibly bed in, live in, move through during the daylight hours. He's just not going to move in that area. Some of those areas are so deep he can never move through. And so I'm looking at areas where they're not going to bed and they're not going to hold. Now, there might be islands out there, but what happens in November, especially in the northern areas, is you get a 1/4 inch of ice on those swamps, and those deer won't walk through them. They won't walk and break. So if you have a hard time staying up on the ice, then the deer probably will too. And at the same time, if it's all wet, they might be using it if it was a part of their fall pattern. And certainly if you're in the middle of all those bait piles or food sources, distant ag fields, whatever it might be. But the first step in looking at tens of thousands of acres, I'm taking out all the water. The next step is I'm taking out large common landmass. That could be giant, hundreds of acres of tag alder, hundreds of acres of spruce, hundreds of acres of open hardwood, but I'm taking those big common features out because I want to find where they meet. I want to find where a lot of habitat features come together, but I'm starting by taking out those big, large common land masses, and that helps me narrow down where deer are going to be, because deer are creatures of edge. So they're going to narrow it down to just those edges. So when you're looking at 10,000 acres, when you're just looking at edge, you're taking out the water, you're taking out those common land masses. Now you're getting into a few hundred acres instead of 10,000. So that's a systematic approach. Again, it's worked for me back in 98. Shot a beautiful 8-point back in 98. Seems like a long time ago, and it was. But doing the same thing, and then this buck I'm talking about was 2011. But consistently throughout the years that worked. This has worked. Number 3, find points that connect. And this is really key. So you have those large masses of hardwoods, spruce, swamp, water that all converge. And then you have areas to the south or east or west. And you're looking for those land masses in between that connect through dry ridges, dry islands, in areas that you could look at and say, okay, I have a bunch of land mass over here, a bunch of land mass over here, and there's little dots of cover that connect for a deer possibly traveling between the two in between. So those are funnels. Those are areas that funnel deer, and you might have a lot of water here. You might have a big common area right here, and they're just going to travel that edge, and they're going to travel those funnels in between. So I'm trying to find those areas, because when you start looking at those connection points between large land masses, and in the case where I'm hunting up there, I have a lot of big land masses that have roads, and people are baiting, and people have cabins. They're moving around. I'm not hunting near those areas. I'm hunting usually a half mile at least from where anyone else is parking, a lot of times a mile, and certainly the established bait piles, I'm 3/4 mile to a mile away. Literally almost an hour walk in this case, sometimes over an hour. Public land in Ohio, I'll walk in an hour and a half. Not to say that you can't shoot deer near roads or 20 minutes from a road, but you're taking a gamble that someone might ruin your hunt because you've set up, you're expecting a certain condition with the lack of hunters, and then they're right on top of your lap. So the further you go back in, the more you control your own destiny. And if you see someone back in there, shake their hand. I went in Pennsylvania, I think it was maybe 2018, 2017, somewhere in there. And I walked all the way back into one of my favorite spots that I've been in and out of since '93. And I go in there well before light. I'm back there before shooting hours. It took me an hour and a half to get back there, hour and 15 minutes. I get up to the top. I get down to where I can look down into a flat bench where I want to post up for the day. And there's someone there. I see a flashlight already. They're getting set up. It's crazy that they were there because you don't see a lot of hunters out there. I think in 3 days of hunting, 2 days, I saw 2 other hunters during that entire time. So I just went to plan B. And you always have to have a plan B. In this case, I'm hunting another funnel to the north, a half mile or south. But for the most part, when you get that far back, you can eliminate a lot of people. So I'm finding those points that connect. And when you find those points that connect by aerial photo.
Can I interject here?
Sure.
I feel like when you, like here you might not see it on where it's a lower deer density area, but a lot of times, like in a higher deer density area, if you zoom in on that connection point, there's already a deer trail. Like you can see from a satellite image. Yeah, it's
crazy. You know what you also see with that is, especially when we're talking marshes, those deer trails that go through there, you could have 10 deer go through there, it seems like once a month, and 5 years later there's a trail there for decades to come because they break through the sod base and then it's just a water line. And what's crazy is you can notice where people are going illegally back on public land with ATVs because there'll be ATV tire tracks in those same marshes that you can see from the aerial photo. And it's really easy to see, and they could have done that 15 years ago. But bottom line is I avoid those areas. Yes, I have a right to be there. They're not supposed to be there. But I don't want to run. Again, I want to control my own destiny. So I'm looking for those. It's a great, really good point. So I'm narrowing it down to those funnels. In this case, I'm finding a connection of funnels where it's spruce swamps with lines of tamarack, hardly any hardwood. There's a little bit of soft maple thrown in, and I have big land masses of ridge systems and then land masses of cedar swamp and hardwoods on the other side of that. So I have rolling hardwoods / pine thickets, creek system, spruce funnels, little pockets, and then in the south direction, I'm getting into a giant, probably 500 acre, 600 acre cedar swamp, and then hardwoods on the other side of that. So I'm coming into this from the side. Number 4, recognizing historical sign. What's really cool is if you scout this during the summertime, you don't need to have fresh sign. You're just looking for those old carved out jack pine out in the middle of the swamp that you look at, and you're looking at 10 different funnels. And you go out there and boy, these 3 or 4 are too wet. This one has someone hunting near. This one doesn't have any sign, but all of a sudden 2 or 3 out of 10 are really going to stick out. They're going to have that old sign, and that old sign is critical. And it might be old signs from decades where you can see those carved out rub lines into the side of trees. You can even see where there's scrapes from the previous year. That's even a really good sign where there's actually broken branches hanging down that you know are within the last couple of years. And then certainly you go back there, you can just go do some pre-scouting. In this case, November 15th, giant gun opener in Michigan where there's 800,000 hunters going to the woods. You're just going out a few days before, you're finding that fresh sign and getting out of there and knowing you can come back on opening day with a reasonable chance at success. So historical signs critical. Number 5, you found those water areas and those big land masses where you don't expect deer. Now use them to your advantage, because when you find a stand location, you're going to blow your scent right back into there. You're not only going to blow your scent into those areas, you're going to access through those areas. You have to worry about your scent, meaning you don't blow it into your funnels. Don't ever think you can go back out there with some contraption or scent and just blow it right into your funnel on public land and say, oh, this is good. You're going to be covered. You remember, you just walked in 55 minutes. It doesn't matter what you do. You're not going to be able to cover your scent up. The only way you can cover your scent up is by blowing it away from the deer. So I'm going in to the edge of the narrow funnels. So I found these funnels, I found good old historical sign. I might have even pre-scouted the 2 or 3 days before. I like doing that because once I hit sign and I'm expecting sign right in front of me, I'm not walking through sign, through funnels. I'm walking to that edge, I'm verifying, yep, deer are moving through here. They're going from this ridge to this ridge. They're not going out into this water that I just had to wade through for 300 yards with knee boots, foot deep. They're getting onto this hard landmass. Once I know there's a couple scrapes on there and rubs, I'm getting out of there. So really just lightly touching the edge and getting out. That's if I'm doing any pre-scouting at all. So you're finding you're just walking in so that you do not get deer between you and the edge. In this case, with the big buck from 2011, giant 8-point, it's one that I didn't know was there. I only knew there because I went there the day or two before. I think it opened on a Tuesday in that year. I could be wrong, but I went in there on a Sunday. I pre-scouted, did just what I'm talking about, found that there was giant rubs, giant jack pines, meaning 5, 6, 7 inch in diameter that were scarred, lots of scrapes. Got into that edge. I looked to the edge where I could actually put a pop up. And guess what I did on Tuesday? You know, with thoughts of big bucks in my head, I actually took Dante and Jake out. They would have been, trying to think right now, Dante is 20, and so I'm having a hard time doing the math right now, but he would have been 9, Jake 8, I think, somewhere around there. So there's little young kids, and we're walking all the way back there. We had a pop-up, we had chairs, we had backpacks with candy and everything. And that's why I sent Dylan a picture of Dante and Jake, and you see Dante's just fast asleep, and Jake doesn't look real wide awake either. When it got daylight, I went out to just take a picture of the boys at the pop-up. Pretty cool hunt though. We had a 4-point all of a sudden walk right by. Jake ended up being asleep. Dante, I think, saw it, but the 4-point walked by at like 5 feet. It might have been both boys were asleep in the blind, but really easy to hide a blind in those spruce. And again, we're on the outside edge. So we're just looking into this window. 4-point walks by. At 1 or 2 in the afternoon, Dante said, there's a big buck. I never saw it. It was out 50, 60 yards. Dylan's been in that area. We had a spike go through the one day, and it disappears for periods of time. There might be low brush, and you think it's so open, and it's really not. And again, that goes back to these really close shots. And thinking back, I probably could have gone back out there and had a reasonable chance at success with a bow, you know, hunting the same thing, just hunting those funnels. He sees that. Well, Wednesday we had just wicked windy weather, terrible day to go outside. And Tuesday, the opener, we had a lot of fun because Dante said he saw a big one. I believed him. He's not going to make stuff up. And then we had that 4-point walk just right next to the pop-up. Never even know we were there because it was on the upwind side. It was on the funnel side. So Thursday, I was coming down to hunt in Wisconsin that weekend, and coming down here to Wisconsin's a dream of mine. You know, I love hunting the big bucks when I lived up in the UP in Michigan. And so Thursday, when the alarm went off at 3:34 in the morning, and I still had to drive a half hour to get down there and then walk in 50 minutes in the dark and with a compass and a little bit of light, it's kind of almost intimidating. It's kind of like, oh man, I need to get out of there by 1 noon. 2 o'clock, because on Friday I'm going down to Wisconsin at 7 hours away. So I was really going in there to have a good hunt. I was going in there with the thought of the big sign in the back of my head, knowing that there's a mature buck in there, and went in by myself, ended up sitting down, and it was a really cool hunt. I remember it was a beautiful day, sun coming through the boughs, and really in those situations I've learned, in that case, it's almost like if I was in a tree I'd have more time with a bow. But on the ground, point blank, eye level with a deer, that deer, when he shows himself, you better have the gun out the window, and you better not move much because you're right on his level. And what happened was, I see a buck come up. He's got a big beam off the one side. That's all I saw, just to know he was a mature buck. He stood up on a little knoll. He was quartering towards me. I put the 270 short mag, put the crosshairs right on his chest, shot, and he disappeared. He was about 40 yards. He could have only been 35 yards away. He just disappeared. I didn't know if I hit him or not. I knew everything was on, but it was a matter of 6-7 seconds. He comes up, I take a shot, he's gone. So right away, I go over there just to see, man, do I have blood? Did I hit anything? And once I got over there, it starts to open up because I'm starting to get in the marsh a little bit, off to the side, almost in the area where it connects to the big landmass. And I look around, I just don't see much, but it's thick. It's starting to open up where you can see a little ways, but nothing really there, and no blood. So start fanning out a little bit, and I didn't hear anything out there. It starts getting into a little water in between everything. So I heard water, and I heard running to the southeast, and it sounded like a great distance, and I just didn't hear it anymore. So that allowed me, I thought, a little time just to circle around and look for blood. Well, I found a little blood, and it looked like lung blood, and then a little more. And it's one of those things where, boy, do you keep going, but it's getting open right there. And once I go past a little hump of young aspen or young spruce, some tamarack, occasional white pine, there's some leather leaf in the area. That's that brown little leaf that the deer don't eat. It just sucks on the ground like tundra, sucks at your boots, pulls your boots off. Once I found a little bit of blood going that way, a little bit of blood here. I rounded the corner very slow, gun ready, and I see that monster laying right on the ground. Big giant 8-point, one of the biggest bucks I'd ever seen in the UP. Just a beautiful, incredible public land 8-point. It's funny, after that, then I started getting, some texts, calls from people in the area that had it visiting their bait pile in the middle of the night a mile away. And it was consistent, 12, 2 in the morning. I was back in his bedroom. That's why I hunt in those locations. Always remember, bucks have a huge home range. Does are just a fraction of the home range. So while those does might be within 200-300 yards of the bait pile, that buck is not. He's 3/4 of a mile away in a wilderness area like that. And that's why I love hunting funnels in big swamps, in big wilderness territory. Areas where a lot of people would bring a backpack in. They'd really bring a lot of gear. And I travel light, a couple candy bars and my knife in that case, and I'm going back in. And it was pretty cool to walk up to them and just sat there and stared at them for a while. I didn't want to leave them. I actually put my phone in a tree, and friends Skip and Ben, I finally got a hold of them from town, and they came down to help me drag them out. And it was just an incredible feeling to get them out and to be able to get them. And I had to email, I remember back through my business line, someone accusing me of shooting them in a pen because no one had they hadn't seen a buck. I've hunted there for 30 years. I've never seen a buck that big. It's because they're hunting over bait. They're doing the same thing, the same way, expecting different results every single year. And what I found is when you're hunting this way, not only is it a very predictable way to actually hunt and to find success on whatever buck is in that area at the time, but it's very predictable to find the oldest bucks in the neighborhood or in that area of the wilderness because they're leaving and falling and going away from that hunting pressure and those bait piles that they only hit in the middle of the night, and you're going right back in his bedroom area. So we didn't even have a name for this buck. He's just a big 8-point. He's on my wall. It's funny, Exodus, they call it Whitetail Cribs. They were out, filmed an episode, Exodus trail cameras. You can check those out. There's a lot of them out. They have over 100 probably, if not 200. But they go to someone's house property, but they especially didn't go look at the mounts. And they asked me which one of my favorite bucks is on the wall. And boy, there's so many favorites, but that is one of my favorites. My top 2 or 3, even though I have some that are bigger, for a public land buck in Michigan, my home state, that was very special. But this system right here, hunting those funnels out in swamps and public land, this is a tried and true way to put yourself on deer. And boy, if you go back there, now I'm going up there. I went with Jake last year. We ended up hitting a snowstorm. The day before, when we put the pop-up out and some chairs, it was 6 inches of snow, and that wasn't a bad walk back. But when Jake and I went in there, it was thigh high. We got that much snow that night before, and we had a very difficult time getting in. It was well over an hour and a half in, well over an hour and a half back, and that was fighting heavy snow. And that's all that I have time for sometimes. I went up there, spent some time with the kids, and got to take Jake out there hunting. We didn't see any sign. We didn't see any deer. We had snow coming down on top of the pop-up the entire time as it was melting from the spruce swamp and a lot of wind. But Jake and I had a good talk. We had a lot of fun. We ate some candy bars and took some naps, and pretty cool time to spend with your son out in the wilderness in a place we had done so first, I think would have been 11 years. What I encourage you to do is not like I did last year, but what I did in years past was you identify 3 out of those funnels out of 10 that you've pre-scouted. You know there's a historical sign. Just go out there, poke around really lightly before opening day or before your hunt. Make sure there's sign. A lot of times people are sticking cameras out there now. There's no cell reception in that area, but you're putting cameras out or you're going in there and checking that sign, making sure there's a buck in the area. You're putting yourself away from other hunters. You're walking in a long ways. You're taking great effort to do so. You're not making a trail. You're not leaving any hunter sign, even at the source of the truck when you leave. But you're putting yourself in a position where you can not only get away from other hunters, but you're right in that wheelhouse, and it's a tried and true way to hunt. I encourage you to try it if you have the opportunity on public land and hunting those swamps. And I don't think you'll be disappointed. It's very rewarding. That's the cool thing about public land. Takes a lot of boot time, but very rewarding. And this is a system to reward yourself with this fall. If you hunt in swamps, count yourself lucky. Check out these marshes. Get in there, blow your scent into a non-deer area. Find a funnel that's being used with historical and current sign. And you're going to be on a good road to success right away in your first year scouting and trying this method this fall. Folks, I want to make sure you check out my web class video series, whether it's how to design your food plot program or how to design your property in general. And we have a new one coming out that'll be how to hunt the rut. But these bucks back here are a testament. Some of these bucks go back to 93. They're even in different states. I urge you to check out those web classes that you can help yourself, help your land, help your hunt. The link is in the description. And also for those that have tried them out, I encourage you to offer some feedback in the comments below. Thank you.